Hey, everybody. This is Stephen Herman with the Better Podcast. Hope this finds you doing great. If it's not, find you doing great. Hope this, by the end of it, makes you feel great. I have a great guest on today, Stephen McLaughry. Did I do it right?
You did, yeah.
All right, got to get that right. I believe in pronouncing names properly. It's a big deal. I think we had a recent election where someone's name, Kamala Harris, was murdered way too many times, which is really wrong. So, anyway, not to get political here, but no, great to have you on with Vetbadger and your wife. You have Barbara Vet out of Portland. And
Yep.
so we're gonna talk about all that today. You care about the private practice owners just like I do. You are a private practice owner, so you're gonna bring a lot of great things in. When we get started on these, though, I like to dive into a little bit about you, some fun stuff. Not we're gonna get into the Vet Badger, but we were just talking about cycling. I think your wife loves to bake, right? Too, beyond being a and you've got daughters, and so you've got a lot
Yep.
going on. Tell me a bit about yourself personally. What's fun, family, those things, so the listeners know they're talking to a real person, as real family, and I think it's always great to know.
Yeah, all right. Yeah. So married to a veterinarian. We've been married for 26 years now. We've got two daughters. One of them is going off to college, in about a week.
Congratulations.
And yeah, that's one of those weird things where you just suddenly realize that, this little kid is going off. She's going to Canada too. So she's going to be a long way away.
Okay,
So yeah, that's kind of a
East
big
West
thing.
Coast. Where's she going to be?
I was going to McGill in Montreal.
Okay, so she'll be far away from you,
Yeah.
other side of the
Thousands
continent.
of miles.
Okay,
So
yeah,
yeah, so it's a good time. My younger daughter is 16. She's going to be a junior in high school. So
awesome.
it's a busy household. Of course, when you're married to a vet, you're also going to have pets. So we've
Yes.
got two dogs, two cats, and a rabbit.
Huh?
So yeah, it's a lot of chaos. And in my free time, I probably shouldn't really have free time, but I am a bicycle racer, so I spend time riding in circles because I ride on a velodrome, which most people have never seen, but it's an obscure little sport.
Every 4 years they see it, hopefully. And maybe in
Yeah,
LA coming up, right? The Olympics.
yeah, you'll
Yeah,
probably see it if you see the Olympics. I've raced on that track.
yeah.
I won a world championship on that track one time, so
That's awesome.
it's-
Congratulations on
that
that.
was pretty good. But
That's really cool. So yeah, but that's I think what's good about, well, I'm a cyclist, not I go out and ride. I don't compete. I go on those races they have, right? Just to go for a ride and a reason to train. And so, but when cycling's in your blood and someone else is cycling, there's a lot of commonality there. It takes determination, grit, and I think that speaks about independence and private practice ownership, why that matters to us too, because there's nothing more independent than riding a bike, but yet is group and collaborative too. It has both features.
yeah, it's funny. I was thinking about this because, you know, it's a weird obsession, right? Being a bike racer, and yeah, other cyclists, but other people don't really understand it. And so, as like thinking about how to explain it, and there's all sorts of different aspects to it. Like there's, you like to win, you like to sort of improve yourself, you like to do all these things, but at the end, it comes down to the people.
Mhm.
It comes down to the relationships with other, like this race that I did this weekend. I lost one of the races, and I don't like losing, but I knew going into it that I had put everything I could into it. And so the guy who won, that improves the value of his win. It's not, he didn't beat me just because I was half-assing it. I wasn't really paying. No, I gave it
Yeah,
everything I could, and he beat me. And so when he goes home, he knows that. Like
that's
he
awesome.
knows that he has a valuable win. And so the thing that I contributed, aside from a lot of pain and suffering, was I contributed to the community by being like the best I can be, even when it's not good enough. It's still the thing that brings quality to the whole community. And I mean, it's the same with veterinary. I mean, I'm sure we'll get into this later, but like
Yeah, we will.
those relationships are really the core of the whole experience. And there's
Mhm.
all these other reasons that we do these things, but in the end, it's how we interact with these other people and how we bring value to other people who either need our help or just need to, interact with us.
Interesting that correlation with the veterinary community, competition and bicycle racing. It's like you said it. y- You make each other better.
Yeah.
It's like you want to win. There's no question about it. But what I heard from you is even though, yes, I don't like to lose, I gave it my all. And and we're friends afterwards, right? Whoever wins loses, we're still friends. It's not like enemies,
Oh
and
yeah.
that's the veterinary space too. It's I grew up in the grocery industry, and to a degree, it's like other grocery stores are kind of like enemies. You want to beat them in price, beat them up, take their business, and it's really kind of wrong kind of thoughts. But in the veterinary community, the competition really is yourself, improving what you do and learning from others. So there's a huge correlation between what you just said and why it all comes together. So I'm feeling it. I hope the listener is. That makes sense to me. So yeah, well that's awesome to hear about. So tell me about baking. Your wife, Dr. Alexandra, bakes. Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's funny. She kind of got into it from my mother. My mom used to make bread. We always had homemade bread, and Alexandra had, she'd baked a little bit, but she kind of never really gotten into it. And then started talking with my mom about how she had done it. And my mom kind of gave her some tips, and it just took off from there. And now she's introduced it to my daughter now. And so my daughter bakes. And like when she was picking a college, she had to make sure she could find a dorm where she'd have access to a kitchen because she wants to be able to make bread. And she's taking her sourdough starter with her. And, it's become kind of a family thing. But yeah, there's
That's
a lot of good.
the sourdough starter goes back a ways too, probably. Is that?
Well, it would, but so a couple of years ago, my nephew actually stayed with us for a year, and he moved in, and he was in college, and we were kind of helping him out, and he thought it would be nice to repay us by cleaning out our refrigerator, and so he found this thing in the back of the refrigerator that looked all gross, and he threw it away. We were gone for the weekend, and we come home, and he's thrown away our sourdough starter. So we had to actually get some new sourdough starter from a friend. So it's not sort of the family one, but we did have
no good deeds. I don't know, going
no good deeds. But when he after that, we had to name the new sourdough starter because he really liked the pets, and so we had to explain to him that the sourdough starter was like another pet. So the sourdough starter is named Herman.
It's good name.
Yeah, so we put that name on the starter, and then he never touched it again. So it worked out.
Okay, that's amazing. Well, good stories. Good to learn about you. It's fun. We got to keep going on the veterinary side of things, right? Talk about software, talk about the practice. So, but originally, though, before we get to that, you were not building veterinary practice management software. You were working software engineer, other places.
Yeah. So I was actually in software research. When we got married, my wife was doing veterinary school in Ireland, and so I moved over to Ireland. That kind of ended the research project that I was working on. I ended up finding a startup to work for. And then I kind of got into the software startup space, and I was there for a long time and worked in a bunch of different companies. Never became a billionaire the way you're supposed to. But I learned a lot. So my wife, by that time, she was working in corporate, at a corporate clinic. And we started talking about the software that she was using and the problems that she was having with it. And one of my projects was kind of coming to an end, and I was kind of looking around for something new to build. And that was kind of where Vetbadger started. It was kind of those original conversations.
Well, she was frustrated too with practice management software. Were you managing the veterinary practice at that time, or that was pre that?
That was pre that. Yeah, she was actually still at the corporate clinic. She was working, I guess we can say, it was VCA. It was one of the big VCA clinics.
Yeah.
And, it was just sort of a traditional system. They were using one of the traditional practice management software. It was even before they, VCA now has their own sort of custom stuff, but this was back before that. And the main thing she was struggling with, it wasn't really the practice management. Like, this is sort of one of the subjects we'll probably get into, is that the common definition of practice management software, it's changed a little bit, but back then, especially, it was mostly just EMR, right? It was the medical record. It was sort of the medical record tied to the financial record, maybe, but that was about it.
To checking a client out, maybe some inventory and pricing, maybe,
so
right?
A little bit of that stuff, but mostly just kind of focused on the medical record. Mm-hmm. And what she was finding was that, back to what we were saying, it's all about these relationships. Mm-hmm. And specifically for her, it was the relationships with her clients and trying to have her clients understand what they had paid for when they came in for a visit. Because you go to the grocery store, you go home, you know what you got, right? You have a receipt,
right?
You have a bag of groceries. It's pretty clear what you've paid for. But for a lot of people, when they go to the vet, some tests get run, some words get said, They don't really understand all of the things going on. They're a little bit scared. They're kind of emotional. By the time they get home, most of that stuff is gone, and all they have is a bill. And maybe the cat's feeling better. Maybe the dog's still limping. They're not really sure. Half the time, they kind of feel like they've been ripped off. The more important thing is half the time they may not remember the instructions on how to give the pills, and maybe they can't read it on the label. And so, things just kind of slowly fall apart. But if you can really communicate what you've done during the visit and what the follow-up care should be and what the problems were and what the findings were and what tests you ran and what the results of the tests, and not just the numbers from the test, but what those numbers mean in layman's language, like presented in terms that the customer, the client will actually understand. That's when those relationships start to form. That's when that trust starts to build, right? Once your client feels as though you can talk to them in their language, they're more likely to ask you questions if they don't understand things. And so she was trying to solve all these problems, and all she had was just practice management software. And so she was trying to change the settings on these things and come up with a report that would turn into a PDF that she would then send from her personal Gmail account as an attachment. And people still do
steps, a lot of work.
Yeah. Oh, it's ridiculous. And that was my first thought. I was like, that's ridiculous, because by that time I'd been writing modern, cloud-based internet software for years. And the veterinary industry moves kind of slowly on the technical side. And so, a lot of the software is not really cutting edge. And I was looking at it I was building stuff like this a long time ago, and the stuff that I build now looks a lot better than this. So why don't we build something better? And so that was where it started, with let's build some communication tools that will let her, communicate with all of these clients in ways that all of the clients can understand and can sort of build these connections.
I think what I love about that is that better communication is going to lead to trust amongst your client. And it's also going to speed things along. Is maybe you don't get as many calls questioning what's going on. What did I get? You know, and beyond that, you get better outcomes for the animal.
Yeah.
Which that's what everybody wants. Longer life for the animal, better outcomes, healthier, and knowing what you're paying. I think that's the biggest part, because people are like, did I pay too much? What did I get? I had no idea. They really don't, especially when the New York Times a year ago has an article out about vet prices and starts you're in New York City. Vet prices are really high there, but but space $2,000 out there or $3,000, whereas in mid-Missouri here it's $200 to $500 or something. Yeah. So what is the right price? What do I pay? And that communication is key, because I talk about it. I've sat on the other side of the veterinary industry up until a decade ago, just bringing an animal in. And I joke about that. If anyone said, would you be working at veterinarians? I go, yeah, I've got pets, but I had no idea what went on behind the other side of the door. I came in the client side, doctor came in the doctor side door. And it was a doctor at the time that I had when I was a kid, and Dr. J. Kirkpatrick down at Osage Animal Hospital. And so I just trusted him. Knew he'd do everything right, but I had no idea what was going behind the scenes. And you need software, you need efficiencies to communicate better, and also save the doctor time, so they have more time to see animals, or maybe bake bread. You know, so have time to break bread.
Yeah. Well, like you were saying, like you knew that veterinarian since you were a kid, right?
Right.
But in order for him to have a viable business, he can't base his whole business on you. He's got 1,000 people like you, 2,000 people like you, and they all have known him since they were kids, right? So this is the sort of the asymmetric nature of these relationships, where there's one vet and there's a couple thousand people who think of that one vet as their vet. And so if you're just sending email from your personal Gmail account, you could get 2,000 different emails from all these different people. And it's really hard to keep track of the medical details of each of those different 2,000 conversations. And that's
how do you get that information back in, right? That side too. Like, are you guys email coming to you? Are you putting that in the system?
Yeah, that's exactly.
Tedious.
And so how do you organize that stuff? How do you manage those relationships? How do you make each of those individual relationships an actual connection without just completely making your brain explode of, trying to keep track of all these different people and what was the last thing I said to each of these people? And that's why, you need tools that are designed for this.
Especially today, in the speed of things, and people, the way they communicate now is different than it used to be. Obviously, it's emails are emails are a burden. I mean, you go on your email and you're like, I got 100 emails since yesterday on, this one, and I got 3 email accounts.
Yeah.
And I signed up to receive emails from that place. Thought I unsubscribed from it, and you just get, yeah. So yeah. So how do we communicate today that works? Because that creates that trust, that creates that happiness about too. It's like, hey, less friction when you're bringing your pets in. I feel like I'm educated on what's going on, so that's huge. That's huge. Yeah, I want to go back. Your wife worked VCA, and I always like to preface this because I got friends that are in the corporate area. You do too. It's like, hey, this is nothing against corporates. Just like in bicycle racing, uh, you need competition.
Yeah.
And so I think with private practice and corporate, those are the competition. It's not private practice and private practice. It's private practice and corporate. Really, in a
Yeah.
sense, it
Yeah.
is. They have to go, and corporate can make private practice better. There's Walmart's the biggest example in the grocery industry, and Sam Walton, of course, he believed in technology. That's why they did so well. He believed in technology from the 70s, and so embracing technology. I got to emphasize that every private practice owner out there embrace technology. Be smart about it. I mean, just go sign up and get AI stuff, right? The willy nilly stuff. Get good technology. Know what you're using. But he would always say, "Don't do what I do. Do what you do." And I think as people have to remember, it's like, what is your specialty? So as you look at that with your software, I think we've talked about what does make you unique against the competition? What is that's like, this is why someone would want mine over. How many PIM systems are there out there? 70 or
Keep
so,
track.
or
Yeah.
who knows, right? Too
There's
many,
a new one
too
every week.
many it's too many. Every week pops up. You've been in it
Yeah.
for a while, so you're
Yeah.
one of the earlier guys.
Yeah. I mean, from the perspective of the private clinic, the way you got to think of it, like what distinguishes you, like, yeah, like Sam Walton said, like do what you do. The thing that you do most of the time versus and honestly, it's the thing that the corporates can't do is that real human connection. Because the whole point of the corporate clinic is that they're going to hire 5 vets and they're going to schedule them whenever. And if a client calls, they're not going to be able to go to the same vet that they went to last time. And then 6 months later, that vet's going to be burned out and she's going to quit, and they're going to hire some new graduate and they're going to replace them. And there's just going to be constant turnover. The staff is going to be half burned out and half turned over all the time. And so all of those clients are going to see that. And the way that you compete as a private clinic is you make those personal connections. You put your name on your email. You put yourself out there as the person that they're communicating with. And if, even if you've got 5 doctors, each of your doctors can have their own personalities and their own clients and their own ways of practicing medicine and their own ways of connecting with their clients. And then the clients know when they connect with the clinic, there's kind of 2 sides of it. One is you need to be able to give everyone on the team, including all your vets, the ability to make these connections with the clients directly. But then you also need to be able to have the context so that everyone on the team has the context of whatever conversation has been going on with that client. So that when the client calls, maybe they don't get to talk to the particular doctor that they talked to last time, but anyone who is talking to them can see what that doctor was saying and can support the message that that doctor was providing. And so if you can do that, like we call it the James Herriot experience, right? It's exactly what you were talking about with your vet, right? Mm-hmm. It's that feeling of people know who the vet is. They know who the vet is married to. They know who the vet's kids are. They know that the vet likes to make bread, right? All of that stuff enhances the connection between the client and your clinic. And that's the way you win the competition. Because in the end, that's actually what people want. Like they love their dogs. They love their dogs. They love their cats. One of the reasons they love them is because it's part of that community.
Yes.
Right.
It's like a local restaurant.
The community to support their animal in the same way that they love their animal. They don't want to just. You're not taking your dog in to get his oil changed, right? You have an emotional connection to the dog. You want an emotional connection to the people taking care of the dog.
Yes, I liken it back to not so much it used to be, but it's a restaurant. The restaurant owner, the local restaurants, like that's the person you want. You go in to see, right? They got a good character. You enjoy it. Their recipes, all those things that matter. So that's the veterinary practice, embracing that. And so on the veterinary software side, that's what you want to see happen. for the private
Yeah.
practice owner. That's
Yeah.
your unique is to continue that. Am I hearing that right?
Yeah. So the way we distinguish ourselves at Vetbadger is that it's a complete practice management system. So it is, it's got the electronic medical record, it's got the client relationship system, it's got all of these things, but it's all in one place. And the reason for that is that, yes, as I was telling sort of the backstory, we did originally start just building a communication system. And,
Yes.
now I think they call them client engagement platforms or something.
Or, yeah, CRS, CRMs, whatever.
Yeah, the CRM, but
yeah.
And we have all those features, but it's integrated into the practice management system. And the reason for that is that the first thing that we ran into when we started trying to solve this problem for Alexandra was that it's too much extra work to try to take all of your communication and bring it into the medical record or sort of check back and forth. And especially when you're expecting everybody on your team to be on the same page with this stuff. If the same page is in 5 different pages, it doesn't work, right? You have to have everything in one place. And so that when someone calls on the phone, Vetbadger has an integrated phone system. So the phone rings actually in the software, and you have, here's the person's name, here's a link to the medical records of each of the patients that this person has. And so before the receptionist even answers the phone, they've got the full context of everything, all the medical complaints, all of the communications that have happened recently, all of that context is in one place. And so that's kind of the thing that ties it all together for us, is that it is a complete system. It's not, we didn't just try to solve one part of this. We're solving all of this. And of course, because we own a practice, that's why, I can experiment with this stuff. And
that's nice. You get to try things out in the practice setting before you release it to the rest of your clients, and they have the software.
A lot of these ideas just come to me because I'm in the clinic and I see people doing things like we built a team chat system because I would watch what they were doing on the computers, and they'd have 2 screens open, and one was Vetbadger and one was a Google Chat. And I thought, well, if we had chat in Vetbadger, you could do this with one screen open. And so that's what we did.
That's not good. It's got to be simple. It's interesting that iPhone won out for simplicity and intuitiveness. Now, of course, there's how many apps now clutter up my phone that I've got. Like, you look on your home screen, and it's like, what am I doing? Oh, I don't even use these apps. I don't know where they're at. You got to keep it simple, because the veterinarian, number one, I think with practice management software, talk about training. That's got to be one of the biggest parts of software, is getting the client to really understand and utilize the software. So talk to me about how do you accomplish that? So
it's interesting. We actually don't have to do that much training. We do sort of an initial onboarding training, and then we have, there's online support. We offer unlimited training. I think maybe part of the problem is that I do the training and people just get tired of hearing me talk. And so they don't want any more training. They'd rather figure it out themselves. I'm not really sure, but honestly,
that's the quickest way to get you through your trainings for you to do it.
Yeah, I think that's probably it. Yeah. But we offer unlimited training, and people just figure it out really fast. But I think, honestly, all joking aside, when we built the system, one of the main things that we focused on was keeping as few, like, as you're saying, like, you've got all the different apps on your iPhone, right? And each app is designed by a different team. There's a different sort of graphic layout. I was noticing, like, I got a new car recently, and it's got the heads up display, on the, the little screen that projects on the windshield. And it's got this little alert that tells you when there's a car in your blind spot, right? And the little icon that it shows when there's a car in your blind spot, there's the same alert that shows up down on the regular dashboard, right? But it's a different icon because it was designed by a different software team.
Okay.
Right? And so when you see that, and this is important, right? This is like, hey, there's an emergency here. And you need to build these things that trigger the shortest path in your brain so that you understand what it means. But they didn't do that because there were 2 different software teams. And they were just like, well, we need an icon that indicates alert. And the other team just came up with a different icon. So when you're looking at it, depending on which part of the system you're looking at, you have to understand that there's a different icon that represents the same thing.
Yes.
That was the kind of thing that we're just constantly trying to avoid that, right? So always looking at the software and saying, of the ideas that we've already built on, which one can we use again, so that when you're trying to do something very similar in another part of the system, it looks a lot like something you've already seen. So you're not constantly having to learn more stuff. You're just maybe learning, oh, this thing that I already understand, now it can also do this other thing as well. And that's the thing. Honestly, it's one of the hardest things about designing a system like this, but it's one of the most important things for making it, when it's this complicated, taking those ideas and kind of reducing them as much as possible so that people can see them. And then honestly, a lot of the training stuff is just that initial, 45 minutes or an hour sort of looking at the basic pieces, and then people can kind of figure out the rest of it.
It's understanding your scope of services and really going after those, and not getting too I don't want to say out of the box. You want to think out of the box, not too just. I don't know what the right word for this is here, Stephen. I'm thinking, you know what I'm saying though. It's like you just don't want to just grab everything and go after it.
Yeah.
You want to look at it, think about how can it fit and have continuity.
Yeah.
Across the system.
Well, part of it is also the system is very customizable. So if you're a smaller clinic and you're not going to be using some of the bigger, fancier features, we turn those off. So they're not sort of cluttering up your screen. And so there's plenty of features that I think some of our users don't even know about, because they wouldn't really be helpful for them. They're not in a situation where they would use them. And those other features, like for example, if you're a mobile clinic, we have a whole set of features that will turn on for you so that when you see an appointment, the client's address is a clickable link that goes to a map so that you can drive to the client's house, because that's what you're going to do. Yes. But if you're a receptionist at a brick and mortar clinic, you're never going to click on the client's address to go to a map. So we turn off that feature and you just never see it.
All right. And it brings up a good question. All right. Who's this software for? Who's your ideal client?
So our ideal client, we've got kind of three main ideal clients, I think. There's the smaller mobile practices work really well with it because it's so simplified and customizable, and it's all in one, right? So it's, you can work with it on the road. You can, it's got the phone system, so your voicemails can be transcribed and go into the medical record while you're driving. You don't even have to worry about it. A lot of those features are great for mobile practices. There's the practices like my wife's practice. So the sort of, privately owned, high-end, relationship focused general practice, where you've got a team, things are happening fast. You need all the sort of the task management, the workflow stuff that really nobody else does, but you've got, you got to have your whole team working together. But you need everybody to be able to connect with your clients. You need to be able to send and receive text messages, send and receive emails, make phone calls, receive phone calls, do video teleconference stuff, all in the software, all that kind of stuff. But I mean, that's kind of the core part of it, because obviously that's my wife's clinic. That's what we understand the best. But then the third one is actually the specialty clinics, because especially like behavior clinics, I think most behaviorists in North America already at least know us. I feel like every time I hear of a behaviorist, it's always somebody that I've either met or they're friends with a behaviorist that I've already worked with, because so much of behavior medicine is about communication. Like, there's not a whole lot of medicine in behavior medicine. A lot of it is about information. It's about training the clients to understand, how to help their animals, all this kind of stuff. Huge amount of text that they send out. And our system is designed for that. It's designed to manage these emails and these communications and all this. We've got the sort of text expander tools and all these different ways of managing libraries of information and customizing it and all that kind of stuff. And so that's become sort of a really strong specialty for us as well. But those are kind of the three sort of.
Is it so? When you say specialty services, not like a big ER or
no,
like
so more like
orthopedics
surgery
or
specialists. We've got a few sort of cancer specialists, a lot of behavior specialists. And again, the relationships in that case it often also comes down to communicating with the referring clinics. So if you're sort of, there are some dogs that have behavior problems and skin problems, and they go to a bunch of different specialists. And so having software that actually manages communication across a whole team of other people who aren't even on your team, but you need to be able to share, manage all this information that's going back and forth. That's the kind of stuff where we do really well.
What I love about this, so not only did you really start off to solve this communication, go beyond the EMR, the medical records, you really also went specifically on some certain clients. You didn't try to solve software for everything, like every practice, every different kind, because you specified who you wanted to work with and how to communicate with, and that's huge to focus and know your scope.
Yeah.
So I love hearing that.
Well, I mean, part of it was the timing, right? Because we started out, she was working for VCA, and we were starting to talk about this communication software. And we
Hmm.
actually pitched it to VCA. They were very interested. And then the guy who was leading that initiative changed positions or something. And so that conversation kind of fell apart. And it was right around the
Yeah.
time that she was leaving VCA anyway. And we ended up, she was in private practice, and then we started building the full, that was kind of when we also realized that the communication tool itself wasn't enough. It was too complicated to use. And so we needed to build the whole system. And that was right when we were buying the clinic, and it all just kind of fell into place. And this was kind of, this was where we belong. These are our people.
Yeah, it's my independent practice or independent business comes from my grandfather, buying a grocery store in 1968, and just growing up in independent business. And so I just love it. I believe in the community that they support. Just as a veterinarian, the community they support. Talked about biking earlier. It's about community, and I don't think there's any better business to build community than a private business. So, what is that passion that drove you to go? I want to just support these private practices.
I mean, there's a family aspect to it. So my grandfather started a tool factory back in 1920.
Wow.
And he, had his own, had a factory, had a team of 20 or 30 people. And, when I was growing up, I remember him telling me when I was first going to my first job interview, he told me, don't try to talk up yourself and your abilities, talk about what you can contribute to the team, because that's what people care about. And that always stuck with me, is like, being sort of part of a team, being as a business owner, being sort of supporting a team in that way. Like, I mean, when he sold the company, he sold it for a much lower price than he was offered, because the guy who was offering the top dollar just wanted to take the name and shut down the factory. And so he took a cut rate because he sold it to a guy who was going to keep the factory open and keep all his team employed.
Mm-hmm.
And that means a lot, right? You're not,
Yeah, that's huge.
money isn't everything. If you're,
No.
if you can stand up for your people, then that's real value. And so that's kind of one of the things I've always believed. And so, yeah, once we had a clinic and we have a team, and, trying to support them and kind of looking at how they interact and learning from that, and how can we make it easier for them, and then realizing, well, a lot of other teams are going to work in the same way.
Mm-hmm.
We can build this thing that'll work for those people.
What a story. That embodies a lot of veterinarians we work with too, though, because when they go to sell their practice, they want to keep it private. They'll sell to their associate. Who we got?
Sorry, that's my I don't know her name. This is my brother's cat. I'm staying at my brother's house this weekend. And
your brother's cat must like you, or you're in that cat's chair, one of the two.
Yeah,
so
no, she's quite friendly.
That's awesome. But thinking back to that, though, they will take less money than corporate money because they want their practice to say private.
Yeah.
And they're out there, and they know that they have enough money to enjoy life and be proud of what they sold and not have regrets. There's, like it says, more to it than that. People think differently, right or wrong. It's the way we think and the way we feel about private practice. We share that nuance, which is huge. Appreciate you sharing that. Yeah, that's in your blood. It's in your bones. It's just you live that life. So it makes sense why you're doing private practices, and that's what this podcast is about. It's for the private practice owner, and so you're in the right spot. That's okay. We've talked about how you got into it, the uniqueness of the product, of Vetbadger, but what about some hurdles? What hurdles did you hit along the way? You've been at this for almost 20 years, right? In this software, it's 15 years or
10,
so. Is it
10 years since we first sold it? So yeah, we built it for the first couple of years. It was kind of a side project back then. So we were just building it for the clinic. But yeah, it's been 10 years since we first started kind of marketing it and selling it. But yeah, I mean, honestly, the hurdle is that I've written a lot of software. I'm trained to write software. I never learned how to sell software, and how to market software. And it's, as we said, there's 20 or 70 different practice management systems, and there's new ones all the time. And there's lots of people who do practice management with just a spreadsheet or something, but it's this core piece of the practice. And, it's the software that the whole team uses all day, every day. And so convincing somebody that they should move away from what they're currently doing is, I mean, I'm learning how to do it, but it's taking me a long time. And
Yes.
it's a difficult conversation to have with people because it's, it sounds like it's going to be incredibly disruptive. And so you have to kind of talk about, like we're talking about it here, talk about the values of, if you believe in these things, if you believe in the relationships, then your software decisions should reflect that. And so, when you're thinking about which software you want to use, you have to think about not just which one is being sold by the corporation that's also selling you your medical supplies, but maybe the one that actually closely aligns with your values and will actually support the way you want to practice medicine. Because in the end, again, it's the thing you're using all day, every day. It is going to make a difference. The choices that you make about how that software works, it's going to have an impact on you every single day. But kind of that's honestly been one of the biggest challenges for us, is kind of figuring out how to frame that conversation.
Oh, I had a note on here, looking over what we're talking about today, creating the need. I think that's one of the biggest challenges of any product, is actually creating the need. Like, how does someone know they need your product? That's the trick, is creating that. Because you go through the iteration of phones. I mean, when BlackBerry came out, who knew you needed BlackBerry? But then everyone has loved it. You
Yeah.
had Palm Pilot, right? Palm Pilot was the original touchscreen,
Yeah.
all that stuff. But it's not. That didn't go anywhere. They didn't. Why do I need this? I knew why I needed it. I was a guy in college in the '90s that had a Palm Pilot taking notes with a fold-out keyboard.
Right.
I was that guy.
Yeah. Yeah. My wife had
People
one.
looked at me like I was crazy.
Yeah.
Because they hadn't created the need for it. But then you go to the best marketer of all time, Steve Jobs, arguably, and takes and sells gets rid of your keyboard off your phone that you're addicted to with BlackBerry and a little scroll wheel. Like, come on. So yeah, I think that's the thing, is how do you create the need? And so as you're learning that, what are you finding? Are you finding that, like, how you create the need, that why you would take this time to move software? Because it's been painful. The problem is, people have done it before. They've never had a good experience with it. They've lost data. Prices aren't right. It takes 6 months to even get feeling good about it. And then 6 months from then, you're like, did I gain anything?
Yeah.
What was this all for? So yeah. So how do you create that need? Why would I need it?
Yeah.
How would I know I need it?
Yeah. I mean, it's when you see that mismatch between, what your software does and how you want to practice. That's when you start to see, okay, there's a need here. There's something, I'm spending too much time struggling with all these different tools. My team isn't on the same page. My, clients call in and they're not getting answers to their questions, and they're getting upset because they're hearing different answers from different people on the team. My medical records are hard to read. I can't send medical records to other people. I'm just struggling with technology, and it's all coming, and it's affecting sort of the way everybody interacts. That's when you need to, you need to reconsider what you're doing. And then you need to consider, well, just because I've had these bad experiences with other software doesn't mean that that's going to be the experience going forward.
Right.
Like, we've had, a number of people who looked at our software a few years ago and decided to go with something else. That turned into a bad experience. And then about a year later, they get in touch with us, and they've come onto our system, and they've used us ever since.
This is popping in my mind. What I hear out of it's like, is your current software really making your life easier?
Yeah.
Or is it just doing the job, because you need medical records, you got to check people out, you've got to communicate with them. But yeah, does it integrate well? Is it seamless? Is it making your life easier or adding more work to your life? I think that's what you're trying to do. And with the communication with the client, at the end they shoot. I mean, there's 3 things that matter in business: location, location, location. There's 3 more things that matter in business: communication, communication, communication.
Yeah.
Those are the things that matter. So hitting on that communication is huge to have that. So I was just thinking through that, because as I look to pilot and launch a software for the inventory and pricing space, I'm working on creating the story and creating the need, because why is someone going to want what I have? I think that's the big thing, is create the stories we tell, the getting out there, having podcasts like this to be able to tell the story and share it. At the end of the day, that's what continues to create the need. So what other hurdles? You had the sales hurdle, which is everybody's hurdle. Are there any other hurdles that came
Yeah.
across? It sounded like you learned you had the hurdle of this. Do I just do a CRM, styles communication? No, I need the whole software. So that was probably a pretty big hurdle originally. Be like, I got a product. Oh, wait a minute. I need to have a bigger product.
Got to be a
So
bigger product. Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, honestly, for us, so my co-founder and I are both software engineers. And we've both worked for a long time for other people, building software that other people tell us to build.
Okay.
And so this chance to build the software that we can see solves a need doesn't even really count as a hurdle because it's so much fun,
Cool.
right? It's
Yeah.
what I was made to do, right? It's
Yeah.
seeing someone's problem and understanding how I can solve the problem. And I mean, there's technical hurdles all the time, but like that's what I'm trained to solve, and I love that stuff. So
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, there are all sorts of technical issues that you run into all the time, but that's what I used to get paid to do for other people. But it was just not fulfilling because you can solve these problems and then you're just presented with the same problems the next day, and you never really get the meaning behind it. But to be doing this when like I understand the meaning behind it, I understand the people behind it, I understand I mean, like I was saying before, these are my people. Like even though I'm not a veterinarian, but my wife's a veterinarian, I was there with her in vet school, so all of her vet school friends are my friends, and I saw them all sort of grow up and become these fantastic people. And like knowing that I can just help these people is just, doesn't even really count as a hurdle. It's just fun.
That's cool. That's cool. So you're going to have, or that makes hurdles fun to overcome.
Yeah,
Is
I
that
think
that
that's
part of
yeah.
it?
I mean, the technical stuff. I mean, we can talk about like code complexity or something, and user interface design, and like I was saying about the choice of the icons and all that stuff. Like
Right.
there's all these decisions that you have to make, but it's fun. Like it's
Yeah. How about successes? What are some of the milestones along the way that continue to show that you're on the right path?
yeah. I mean so I think one of the earlier successes we had. I mean, again, it all comes down to stories, right? It's
Mhm.
stories about people. So we had a behavior clinic who had, this was during COVID. So first of all, one of our original customers, like 2 weeks into COVID, everything was shut down and everyone was switching to telemedicine. And she reached out to us and said, "Hey, I've seen that there's all these different tools for telemedicine. And we have pretty close relationships with especially some of our original clients. We spent a lot of time talking with them, and so we know them on a first name basis. And so she asked us, just she was like, give me a recommendation. What video software would you use for doing telemedicine? And we looked around and we thought, hey, give us a couple of weeks and we'll build you one. And that was so we built the telemedicine system that's now part of the medical system. And it was just because one of our original clients asked for it. But then 6 months later, maybe a year later, this behavior specialist that I was telling you, they had a technician who wanted to move back home. You remember during those times of COVID when everyone was kind of reconsidering and moving back to where they came from and things like that. And one of their
Right.
technicians wanted to do that, but she was really valuable to their practice. And so they had realized that they had started doing all these telemedicine exams using these tools that we had given them. And so they came up with this arrangement where it was really easy. She just moved home. Now she's a remote technician. She just
That's
dials in
cool.
for their telemedicine exams. Even when they're doing exams in the clinic again, they just set up a laptop over on the desk and just dial her in.
That's cool.
And just stories like that and then honestly another year or so after that, the receptionist at our clinic at Barber Vet told me that her husband had gotten a job in California, and so she was going to be leaving, and she was really sad because she'd been a receptionist for a long time. And I said, hold on a minute, let's see what we can do. And so that was the kind of the incentive for us to add in. We had some of the telephone features, but then we built the full sort of built-in voice over IP system. And so we kept her as our receptionist. She's now a remote receptionist. She lives in California. She works from home. She talks to all of our clients. Quite frequently, our clients will walk in the door and say, "Where's Natalie? I was just on the phone with her." Like they don't even know that she's not in the building.
Right.
And it's just great to be able to offer people that kind of flexibility and to kind of support
Mhm.
these people in for them to live the lives that they want to live, just by writing good software.
But that helps the culture and the practice to be able to
Exactly. Yeah.
hold on to people be able to work out. And it's shoot, you have to, especially post COVID.
Yeah.
We're gonna, the research is gonna come out of how we've changed in a matter of a few years. It's just we don't even understand. We don't, and
Yeah.
so that's what's neat about having a nimble software is being able to add those things on, and you're building it like you said. You and your co-founder get to build these things for you and your clients, which makes it wonderful. Speaking of that, as we look at those you gave the great answer of an entrepreneur. Hurdles are just part of the fun. So that's a great answer there. Then the success is that to validate what you're doing with helping private practice, helping people, it is wonderful. Looking forward in the future, how do you see? What do you see happening in the next 10 years in the veterinary space, veterinary practice management software? Like, maybe it's a hard question to ask, but maybe it's harder to answer. What do you see? Everything out there, it's like, wow, this is going to change.
I mean, on the technical side, of course, the elephant in the room, AI is coming.
Mm-hmm.
Now I think there are about as many AI scribe softwares as there are practice management softwares.
Yes.
I don't think any of them are making any money yet.
No.
And of course, I have opinions about what they're doing right and what they're doing wrong. I think that there's going to be a couple of generations of that idea before it really, before they really figure it out. Right. There's
sure.
So I was telling my grandfather owned a tool factory starting in the 1920s. And I mean, he started it. And then of course he's kind of the opposite of me. He wasn't the engineer. He was the sales guy. I wish I'd learned more from him back then. But he would take his bag of tools and he would drive around to all of the mechanic shops in like all around New York and Pennsylvania and show the tools to the mechanics and try to sell his tools that way. But one of the things after he died, we were cleaning out his garage and it was just full of tools that I'd never seen before. Just like these bizarre, all kinds of different tools that seem completely useless. But during that time period, there were, I don't know exactly the number, but there were like 50 or 60 different car companies because it was the early days. Like we think about like Ford and Chevy, but there were tons of other companies and each one was making cars in their own way. And so he was trying to figure out how to make tools for the mechanics who were working on all these different cars. And so he was just constantly making just experimental tools. Some of them he would sell, a couple of them, and just trying to figure out where is the industry going? What is the technology really going to settle down at? And I think we're kind of in the same state now with AI, where everybody's got an idea of what the tools are, but nobody really knows what the uses are yet. And so I think I have some ideas about what it's going to be. So we're starting to build some of that stuff now. It's going to be, I think it's really hard to predict what software is going to look like 10 years from now, but I know that it's going to be driven by AI. It's not going to be what everybody thinks it's going to be, right? It's going to be simpler. It's not going to take over the world. We're not going to, I mean, there are going to be robot surgeons, but they're not all, they're going to be real surgeons.
They did a gallbladder removal. You see that? They did a gallbladder removal the other day. Yeah, they did gallbladder. The robot had studied enough, is doing successful gallbladder removals now.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I mean, that kind of thing it's absolutely coming.
Yeah, I think I'm with you though. It's like it's not going to take over the world. It can be used for good, but the struggle is what is that going to be? We don't know. Like the AI scribing and all that kind of stuff. It's still there's a lot of hurdles there and barriers there for that to work right. And then even from the standpoint of AI hallucinates, and I remind people in the veterinary space, I want to say it's delicately in the right way. I don't know if I know how to phrase this right, but it's like the veterinary space and dollars isn't a big industry compared to human medicine, compared to what I used to be in the grocery business. And you kind of have to look at some of those bigger industries, see what they're doing. And in human medical, they're not really doing AI medical record polling and scribing. I mean, because it hallucinates still, right? It's like it's not trained up enough even to, it might mess up, and it messed up once, man,
Yeah.
That's a human life, and it's
Yeah.
bad. An animal you should think the same way. Are we essentially? It's like, are we placing the same kind of value on life between the two? It's like, oh, we could test this out in the pet space. If someone dies over here, it's just a dog or a cat, which is like, no veterinarian wants that to happen, especially
Yeah.
with technology, right? That would just crush that. So those are kind of interesting concerns, and saying it's like, say, moving in the future. Yeah, I think it's a great way to put it, Stephen. That we don't know what that moment's going to be of like, oh wow, this is what it's for.
Yeah.
This is what it really can bring value.
Yeah. And I think it's going to be, the vet community is a big space. There's a lot of variety among practitioners, among what they're willing to do and what they're, where do they want help? Like, what part of your practice do you feel you would benefit from better technology? And it hadn't occurred to me that a bunch of people were asking to talk to their computers, but apparently that's what the AI companies are banking on.
Right.
So maybe that works. Maybe a bunch of people decide that they would rather be speaking their notes in front of their clients instead of typing them, but I'm not sure that that's the way people really want to interact.
Right.
And so if that's not it, then there's a whole segment of the industry that's just going down the wrong path. And so then the question is, how many of those ideas can be sort of reformed and turned into something else that is the thing that people really want to be using?
And back to your correlation of all those automotive manufacturing back, in the 20s to a few today in the United States, at least, right?
Yeah.
They're starting to pop back up though, right? With electric cars and other things.
A few of them, yeah.
Probably seeing the same thing with practice management systems and other technology, right? Where they're all like, oh, we come in and do this, and then who's gonna go and be here in 10 years that'll be pretty wild to see. So we're along for an exciting journey. So well, I want to be respectful of your time today, and I've really enjoyed our conversation. There's a ton we can talk about, and I think the important things I've heard today about taking care of independent practices, the passion that's there, the communication your software provides. So the vetbadger.com is the website to go to check out the software, and I would encourage anyone listening to go take a look at it. I understand the difficulty of moving software, but hearing from Stephen what he can do, I feel like it's a software that's probably worth the move to look at. If you're struggling today, looking for something to help yourself out, practice medicine effectively, communicate effectively, I've heard great things today. But I want to leave you with last word here. I always like to tell people, imagine that you're in the car ride home. Like say we're sitting knee to knee right now, and you're driving home. Like, crap, I wish I would have mentioned that or said that. You have something like that right now that you're like, man, I should have said that.
Well, I mean, we've talked about a bunch of different things. I think one thing I often talk about more than we've really focused on today is the aspect of sort of the team relationships and the fact that, like, we have all these communications with your clients, but there's also the communication and the coordination with your team. And so, we build all these tools, and that's, again, it's one of those things that I don't think anybody else really focuses on that at all. But we have sort of task management stuff. We have the chat stuff built in. We have all those things. And we're thinking about building kind of I don't know, we haven't really come up with a name for it yet, but maybe Vetbadger Lite or something that's going to be easier to switch to, because it won't be sort of the full practice management system. But, if you're committed to your practice management system, but you need the team collaboration stuff, we're thinking about just kind of pulling out those tools and offering that as kind of a lighter version of the system. So anybody who's interested in that, I'd definitely like to hear from them, because we're kind of in the early stages of that, but definitely. And again, this was kind of what I was saying about being in the clinic and seeing the way our team collaborates. Like, we've built a system that's very much tailored for a team that works really closely together. And it's definitely an industry specific thing. I was thinking about this because there are other tools that do sort of task management stuff, but it's different at a vet clinic and the requirements are different. And so the way our system works is definitely, it's specific to this environment. And I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, it's unique what goes on in a veterinary practice. And I love that about it. So communication, not just to the client, it's amongst the team, because how could you ever have good communication to the client if you don't have good internal communication?
Right.
So that's a key part that you solved there. So I love hearing that. Love that you added that. And I do appreciate your time today. I look forward to seeing where
Great.
Vetbadger grows to. And for everyone listening today, if you like what we had to say, please like and subscribe to our channel. We're on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and check us out at thevetedpodcast.com. I'm Stephen Herman. My guest today has been Stephen McLaughry with Vetbadger and Barber Vet out in Portland, Oregon. Thank you so much for your time today. Take care.